All music is the same. It's just a new set of lyrics and a new backbeat.
So, AndreGraziadei for the Backbeat Experience. Today in a chat with Monster Truck, talking with John and Jeremy. Thanks a lot for taking time out to have a chat. It's nice to be able to chat with some fellow Canadians.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So, you guys herald from Hamilton. I mean, you know, what's the scene like in Hamilton?
We're not there anymore, so we don't know.
Good answer.
Although, one of the key figures of the scene right now is with us on this tour. It's the Dirty Nail. They're just in the dressing room next to us. And they've been opening up the whole tour, and we're going to be doing it again in Canada. So it's been pretty cool to have two representations of Hamilton, and the whole tour rep in Canada is pretty neat.
Yeah, because it's, what, 3 Canadian bands?
Yeah.
I mean, how often does that happen in Europe?
I don't know.
Probably not very often.
I'm not aware of it. No. So how did the band come together? I mean, Hamilton, you know, I mean, I was looking at some stuff online. You guys kind of like put this together as kind of like, okay, well, sort of a pastime, which actually developed into something else.
Yeah.
I think it was just to try and have fun. And I think we succeeded, and then we succeeded past that.
Yeah.
So,
It's a good way to put it. I mean, there was a lot of, at least from my end, I was kind of like growing tired of trying to deal with the music industry, whether it was the record labels or even just like promoters and shows and tours and all that stuff. And I just really wanted to do something that was kind of free from all that. And then, of course, the irony being that it you know, kind of dug us in even deeper than we'd ever been before.
So it developed into a monster on its own. But I refer to that as happenstance success.
yeah. I guess, yeah, it was kind of luck, I guess.
Yeah, a lot of good timing.
A lot of luck.
Yeah,
98% luck.
I would think so. That's in most things in life. But what was the turning point for the band? You know,
I think we started having people pay attention, and managers started. We got pursued by his manager we knew, and we kind of just sat down and went, well, are we going to do this or what? And we said, okay, let's just give it a go and see what happens.
Yeah, we actually had to make the choice of like whether or not we were going to get back on the road and like start putting some serious effort behind it, you know, because when you make that decision, you actually have to sacrifice a bunch of personal stuff. So,
like finances.
Yeah, and time.
well, time mostly.
Yeah.
Oh, no way. I had all the time in the world once I quit my job, didn't I?
But you gotta be creative.
You're right.
Yeah.
I mean, I figure you either have it or you don't. I mean, you either write songs or you don't. To force yourself into it is never bears good fruit, you know.
Yeah, and honestly, and the big turning point for us was when we recorded the Brown EP, and we did it. We self-released it, and we kind of just put it out there, and then. Due to impatience, we were just unwilling to wait for a label to like fit it into the release schedule and calendar, and we just kind of put it out, and then they kind of insisted on putting it out, they being Dynamo Records, and then once they realized it kind of had some momentum, they put it to radio, and it kind of took off at radio on its own, and with their support, and so that was a big point at which we were like, oh, like this is going to work. On the mainstream side of things, which was kind of a shock to not only us, but also the label and kind of everyone surrounding the band, was kind of surprised by the success it was having at radio, and from there we kind of started branching out internationally.
So Furiosa being your eponymous album, I mean, it had such success. You guys got a Juno for it.
Yeah.
And
we actually won the Juno before that record came out.
Really?
Yeah, we won.
So that's pre-success.
Yeah, yeah. It was really weird. It was a bit of a chicken and the egg syndrome. I mean, we were on the verge of putting that album out, and we were at the Junos getting nominated for Best New Artist or Best New Group. And it kind of was this thing that the momentum was all happening at the same time. One of the singles from the Brown EP was still kind of just coming off of some radio success. We were at the Junos getting ready to have a surprise victory at the Junos, and then of course the album was coming out a month later, and it all just ended up tying together into this big kind of tidal wave of momentum for us and for that album.
Because I mean, with the success, you guys have also done some third-party licensing with video games and TV and so on.
That always just kind of comes hand in hand with the mainstream success. In addition to that, the genre of music we play in, and typically the way we do it, lends itself really well to high action, high impact, high energy games and movies. So they found ways to fit it into a lot of different mediums, and it's always a lot of fun for us because it's usually stuff that we can kind of relate to in a lot of ways, whether it's hockey or video games or sports or just anything in general with pop culture, and it gets us a little bit of exposure, and at the same time it's a lot of fun.
But this so-called instant success, isn't that can that be, I don't know, some people view it as kind of detrimental. Hopefully it won't be for you guys.
Well, see, that's a weird way to put it, because we've been a band for 8 years now.
So it's an overnight sensation.
It's perception.
After 10 years.
Yeah.
That's normally the thing. You work for 10 years to get your name known.
Yeah, well, that's how Twisted Sister did it. I mean, Dee said that they didn't get any success until 10 years into their career. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like we beat them a little bit. But
it's all perception. The overnight success, I mean, especially in the rock world, because the overnight success, the actual literal take on that is something that happens in pop music.
Right.
And again, that's all perception too, but in a different way, in that usually the artists have been manicured and cultivated in the studio in secret for a year or two, and then unleashed on the public in the blink of an eye.
Right.
And that happens in the rock world, but much different in that we're working on our own, in our basements, in our jam spaces, in our own hometowns, in the bars and the clubs where no one's really paying attention until all of a sudden you have a hit single on the radio and you're touring in Europe, which all of a sudden it seems like we came out of nowhere, but it was a very concentrated 4-year to 5-year effort before we started popping up in magazines and in different countries.
So you guys have paid your dues.
I wouldn't go that far.
Not that far, really?
I think we have.
Okay, I think we've done all right. I mean, it used to be a lot harder, right? And there used to be a lot more money, so it used to be harder to get there, and the reward was better. But now, I think, with the internet and everything else, I mean, it's pretty... People find out about you pretty quick. I mean, I know for myself, go on the internet and look for bands. It's it's so easy now. It's like, oh, I like this kind of music. Okay, well, here are 10 bands that Apple Music suggested. And I'm like, well, I like 3 of these. You know what I mean? It's a different animal now. I don't think... I don't know.
I mean, that's what the Journey did to find another singer. Who would think that they would ever be able to replace Steve Perry?
Yeah, I know. So that guy.
That's a prime example right there. True. But song material, I always come up with ideas when I'm either on the toilet or in the shower.
Yeah.
How does that work with you guys?
Shower's a good one.
Yeah.
I find that not typically song ideas, but I come up with maybe different ideas and concepts.
Right.
For the band, whether it's marketing or merchandise or different things we can do with social media, but I love the shower for a think tank for myself.
Oddly enough, yes.
Yeah, it's a great place to kind of shut out a lot of exterior kind of bombardment and let your brain kind of do what it's meant to do, which is kind of come up with things kind of so I'm looking for kind of just out of nowhere, really, where it feels like it's out of nowhere. Your subconscious is allowed to filter good ideas out into your analytical side, but songwriting comes from everywhere, I think. I mean, for me, it's just usually a lot of times it comes in an instant on a new guitar or on or in a moment where I'm just about to sound check, where it's like, can I hear your guitar for a second? And I just don't think and just start playing something, and I'm like, oh, that's cool, and I have to record it immediately or I'll forget it. But yeah, we're always constantly writing. That's important part of the process.
Is that at a point where you'll dream something and wake up in the middle of the night?
I've had that happen.
Oh yeah?
I've had that happen. I always forget to write it down. Only once, I think, did I ever write it down, was able to tap into it later, but I think a lot of times, usually in the dream state, you're thinking it's a lot better than it actually ends up being when you focus it into reality.
Okay. When you guys go to record, is this organic live to tape to try to keep that vibe that you guys can bring across on stage?
No.
No?
Not really.
I mean, now there's a digital
you
world
do what
these
you
days.
can, right? But
Yeah.
I mean, people used to spend 8 to 10 months making records. You don't have that kind of time anymore. You got to keep going and pushing yourself on people all the time. It's kind of like you have to be annoying in order to get
The next level.
farther.
Yeah.
And I think with studio stuff, it's it all depends. What are you going for? Mm-hmm. If you're going for a vibe, then maybe you should sit down with a tape machine and do that. You know what I mean? In minimal editing. If you're going for success and big radio mainstream stuff, you gotta go the digital way because then people will just pick it apart. Unless you got something magic, but that's like a whole different ballgame altogether.
It's something we're trying to do. We're trying to find a way to make it work for us.
I say just do what's the best. And whatever works and sounds the best, just do that. It doesn't matter anymore. I mean, they have so many good tape emulators on computers now and stuff like that. I mean, half the records that are made supposedly to tape are also edited after Pro Tools. It's like, you use the tools you have. If the tools get better, that's great. You know, use those tools.
Yeah, but you guys strive to be able to produce something that you can reproduce on stage.
Oh yeah,
Not too much
honestly,
backtracking
we've had-
and such.
well,
that's the key, right? The key
Right.
is don't put a bunch of crap in there you don't need. Just like, do what you gotta do.
We've had the opposite issue where people tend to find our live shows are better than our albums, which is kind of a good problem, I guess, in a way, because I'd hate to have the other way around where people think our records sound better than our live show,
Right.
which is I think probably a more common problem. And that what you're referring to, kind of like playing live off the floor, is something that we haven't been able to really do a lot of. We did it on the Brown EP a little bit, but you can hear the goodness you can hear from us playing live off the floor is also marred by the fact that we weren't as good of players as we are now, so you can also hear some of the mistakes,
Right.
which is sometimes nice.
That's
for
human.
people. Yes, they like that. So it's about trying to find that balance, and I think that's something that we're looking to try and do. With him mentioning all this stuff that you can do in the studio, and trying to integrate that into also, creating some really like human moments on the other side, and kind of finding this happy medium in between is something we probably want to look into, but we don't really know who we're going to record with or when or what's going to be on the record. It's a lot of stuff to think about.
Well, I met up with the Brew UK. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. It's a trio out of Grimsby in England, and they got the same problem where they're such a outrageous band on stage. It's only a trio, but they can't capture what they do on stage on a record.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like they're kind of like the same situation as these guys.
What he was saying is really true, because in the old school way, producers would find bands like that and work with them for 8 to 10 months and turn them into players that could cut takes over and over again, so that when they got that magic one, it was there. Now, you've got a lot of things hindering this process now, whether it's the fact that the band has to be on the road 8 to 10 months a year instead, so that they can grow the band name, due to the fact that record sales are down, and the only way that people are going to get excited about artists is if they're in their town once a year, and it's impossible to hit all of them in a year. And you've got that problem happening, and then you also have the problem of the fact that rock music is taking a back seat to a lot of other genres. Producers don't want to spend 8 to 10 months of the year. There's not enough money to have that kind of budget to be in the studio 8 to 10 months a year. And then you're talking about the fact that analog tape has gone up tenfold in price due to the fact that it's not used as much and it's becoming extinct. So there's all these different factors playing into the fact that making albums like that is just a lot. It's kind of left to the bands that have established themselves and can take an 8 to 10 month break. They can afford 40 reels of tape. They can afford to be in the studio for a year to a year, and so that whenever you hear a really fun story about a band like the Foo Fighters or someone else being in the studio and doing it all old school and analog, it's a very romantic sounding story, but a very unreachable thing for a band maybe of our size or lower. So. Again, it's all about balance and finding what works for you, and using technology in tandem with another human, more analog element, and finding that kind of way to do it for yourself that is the best representation you can achieve based on the logistics and the tangible aspects of budget and finances and timing and all that
Well,
stuff.
that will come in time.
Exactly. Yeah, and being patient and really having a firm grasp on who you are, what you're trying to do, and the best way to execute that.
So how many of the members of the band are gearheads?
Everybody,
Everybody?
different ways.
Okay.
I count on him a lot
Right.
for in-depth knowledge on especially vintage gear and stuff that I haven't had the time to research, or just the gusto to research. I'm very guitar oriented. I can't help a lot in a lot of categories, and our organ player Brandon, he really spends a lot of time with all the different elements that he's interested in, whether it's the guitar modeling amplifiers or the Leslie cabinets or the B3 Hammonds that he uses in the studio. There's so much to learn in that world, and Steve's also very active with the drum stuff. So it's a big part of our sound, being making sure that we're playing quality instruments, and it's never ending.
So you guys test drive your new material on the crowds?
when we can. It doesn't get to happen as much.
No.
As, yeah, like we played I think a couple of the Sittin Heavy songs on a couple tours, but it was really only 1 or 2 songs, or you know, it wasn't something that we, you know, leaned on or prided ourselves on. It was always nice when you're able to do that.
Well, I mean, YouTube changed all that.
Yeah, because as soon as you play it live, it's released.
There you go. There's your unfinished, unarranged song for the rest of eternity. And then you put the actual version out, and it's different. And people are like, well, it's different than the one I know. And it's like,
That's
well,
what happened. Even my dad got caught
whatever.
in that.
Really?
Yeah, my dad says, what happened to that way you used to play the Lion? What happened with that? There was this, because we had a whole other section and bridge, and the song was almost 5 minutes long. It was like 4.5 minutes long, not a radio single, and it had this whole other section in the middle of it. Of course, my dad got what we call demoitis, and he fell in love with this other version. And I swear to God, every time he has 3 or 4 beers now, he tells me about this old version of the Lion that he likes better, and that he wishes that we did live. You know, and it's just, you know, I can't even please my father. What luck do I have with our fan base?
Wow. Could you envision in the future featuring some acoustic tracks on an album? Because I've seen some of you guys do some acoustic stuff. Really?
Yeah, he hates it.
You know what I would like though, in this case though, particularly, like the idea of writing acoustic songs that are meant to be acoustic out of the gate,
Okay.
with like proper arrangements, would be something I wouldn't be opposed to that. There's a couple of our songs that would really lend themselves to acoustic arrangements. Our problem is that we never really sat down and like actually like worked up. Like we always just pick up the acoustics when we have to do radio acoustic performance. Or we would just pick up the instruments and just play them almost verbatim, which actually does work better than I'd like to admit. But it'd be cool to actually like get like a song like Black Forest off of Sittin Heavy and like actually like get the whole band involved and like work it out in an acoustic format. But we're always kind of stretching for time, and you know, everyone's trying to fit, you know, some semblance of a personal life into the fact that we're on the road 8 months a year. It's a difficult balance to try and add on, in this case, would be kind of, you know, extra stuff, you know, in addition to the already hectic schedule of just trying to do the core idea of touring and being, you know, and writing and
Sitting in a dressing room with nothing to do for 4 or 5 hours a day.
Then it's time to get creative, no?
Yeah, I
Yes.
guess so.
So Monster Truck, I envisioned that, of course, as a cross between. I mean, it's hard. I mean, today people try to pigeonhole bands.
Yeah.
You know, they say cross between classic rock and grunge, so to speak. But I mean, the way I see it, grunge was kind of like the demise of classic rock.
Yeah.
Was it?
I look at it more of like kind of like a revival.
Me too.
Like Chris Cornell, especially at Soundgarden, sounded like a classic rock band more so than like than say like a Pearl Jam or Nirvana. I think there was a little bit more of like a rock renaissance going on.
Yeah.
But you're probably right. I mean, classic rock got so diluted and messed up by the time it finished in like the early '80s. It wasn't really rock. It was like you know, like minus AC/DC, who never changes, and bands like that. But like people got this idea that they had to like, you know, get the synthesizers and play with electronic drums and stuff. So I think maybe it had died. The classic rock died a bit before that. Maybe
Died a slow death.
Yeah, you know, around '87, I think they beat it off, and then around '92, and you know, when hip hop started coming in, of course. I mean, a new sound is a new sound. Everyone wants a new sound. So.
What happened was that rock radio was on the verge of dying completely, especially in North America. All the stations were getting ready to make their format changes, and it was like 92, 93, and they were all going to go down, and there was going to be no more rock radio. And then Nevermind happened. And so this was a weird thing where now all of a sudden they leaned so heavily on grunge and alternative music that by the time that started petering out, they made it into a hybrid. And so now we have all these stations especially in Canada, where they're playing Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, Nirvana, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains. And so that station wouldn't have existed and wouldn't have even been able to continue playing all these classic rock bands had grunge not come and kind of diversified the format and allowed them to play this spectrum of 40 years now. You know, with this kind of weird gap in the 80s where they have, of course, they'll still throw in
some hair bands.
Kickstart My
Yeah, some cow, and you know.
But without grunge, those radio stations would have died long ago, and they would have been left to be pop, hip hop, dance, country stations. And you know, now I wonder what's going to happen, because we've kind of gone through that process again now, where this this new modern rock has come into play, and we don't know how long that's going to be sticking around, and where do we fit in that grand scheme of things, and where does a band like Rival Sons fit in that scheme? Or
Well, I vision you guys along with Blackstone Cherry, Rival Sons, and Monster Truck. To me, that's, as you say, the next wave. But I think it's also timeless.
Yeah, well, that's the idea, and that's kind of the thing that is almost kind of handcuffed radio stations in the mainstream formats, because they don't know what to do anymore. You know, because you've also got modern rock bands like. I don't feel like listing a bunch of modern rock bands.
No, it doesn't have to be.
But you know what I mean. There's
Right.
there's this kind of, especially in America, there's this kind of divide now where the stations don't want to play the bands like us that are kind of throwback because we don't know what we are. Are we modern rock? Are we a throwback band? Are we something in between? Are we a whole new thing entirely? And I don't have the answer for them. I can't tell them what we are. And so they don't know what to do with that, you know, where they're kind of stuck with this format where they don't know what to do and they don't know which bands to play. And even in Canada now, we're starting to see a decline in rock's formats. You know, they're starting to switch over and do.
Yeah, but it's all owned by what? Two companies?
It's basically owned by one company now.
Exactly.
But they don't know what to do, and I don't know what to tell them.
Right.
They don't know what to do. They've got the boardroom meetings where they're trying to decide whether they should take this station and make it more alternative or make it more indie or make it more heavy, and there's no real easy answer.
I think the problem is they don't have enough people that actually love music in those positions.
I can agree with that.
I also think that at the end of the day, radio as a format is in decline, period. And there's no fixing it. You can't take radio and make it more popular when people want to listen to what they want to listen to on Spotify, or they want to listen to their, they want to choose what they want to listen to when they want to listen to, and they don't want to listen to commercials.
Yeah,
So
Google Play's got all the radio stations, like you just pick a genre rather than being like, or
I pick a song.
Which makes, you pick a song and they suggest 100 songs that sound like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's to be honest, it's easier.
Yeah.
It is.
Way easier.
So now you're trying to fix a problem that can't be fixed, which is just that radio is in decline. And so I think the real issue is them thinking they can. Them sitting there for hours in boardrooms trying to figure out how to fix a problem that's unfixable. And, changing format may be 2 steps back instead of a sideways. Best thing they could do is maybe just stay the course and put up a good fight. And so, I don't have any answers. There's a reason I don't work at the radio station.
There you go. The bottom line is just play music, and then have people come and see you live. So
yeah, that's what we do.
That's the bottom line. So you guys have been touring with some large bands, and if I think back to Jackson Browne, he's paid homage to his crew, the road crew, with the Loadout and Stay.
Right.
What have you guys learned that you can apply to yourselves?
Personally,
or as a band that you've learned from playing or opening for these other well-known bands?
I think nothing is as crazy as you think it is.
Right.
Chill out and don't worry about stuff because there's definitely someone else worrying about it.
Okay.
Be professional and don't be idiots. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
It's just the way bands conduct themselves, especially bands at higher levels than us. I mean, there's so much to take from that because all you want to do is get there. So if you don't pay attention and take things from these people, you're not going to go anywhere because they have done it. They have the success because either they're nice people, which goes very long way in this industry, if you can call it that. But it's like being kind or just like not freaking out or, I don't know, solving a problem on your own and things like that where it's like you treat your people right.
Not needing the credit all the time, doing a job and not expecting to get a pat on the back afterwards.
Right.
Yeah, and like for me at least, like traveling has been especially like I would never travel like this. I would have never traveled like this in my personal life ever because I was just scared to. I was scared to be in a different country, scared to be in different places, and scared to move around like this. And when you see that it's actually not as hard or as scary as it seems, I mean, we have a lot of help. But even on the days off when you're up by yourself trying to get around the town or whatever, I found that it's a lot less daunting when you're just thrown into it than it would have been had I been sitting at home thinking about, hey, well, I wonder if I can go to Germany. I probably wouldn't have had the guts to just get on a plane and start walking around Berlin or Munich or something like that. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So after all these experiences, what might still intimidate you at this point in time?
I don't think there's much.
Really?
Yeah, I'm
Are
good.
you at that plateau right now? Or?
I just think, like, I don't know.
We've had enough of those experiences.
Okay.
You're your own person. You be yourself, and then
And it'll
you're
work
all
from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. So being a last-minute opening band for a lot of big-time names, does that bring any complications for you guys as planning your own things?
Yeah. Kind of. New stuff always happens. Stuff always changes. There's nothing ever set in stone. So you kind of live that way. It's harder, more so for my family than for me. But like, it's you just go with it, man. You kind of have to throw caution to the wind and just cruise on through.
So you guys are like traveling salesmen just working on commission.
I guess.
That's for.
Although there's guarantees.
Like?
So,
Like?
well, like pay, you got contracts for all the shows
Okay.
and stuff. But like, it's I don't know. It's you're kind of just going and doing your best, and I guess selling yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then then you go home and sleep.
So regarding videos, how much personal input goes into that?
Fair amount.
Yeah.
We don't really focus too much on videos. It's funny because in North America it doesn't really exist anymore.
MTV, who was it? Helped celebrate MTV's 35 years of 15 years of actually playing videos.
Yeah. It's the same thing. Like, we had Much Music in Canada, as you know.
Right.
And same thing happened to them. Now it's just Simpsons reruns and
Yeah.
the occasional Drake commercial.
And what's it called? Reality TV.
Yeah, it's all that. It's all
Which
that.
is really has
Flavor
nothing to do with
Flav,
reality.
Yeah, all that.
It still exists, though. I mean,
They don't exist out here.
We just released one. Like they still exist. We just
Well,
released a
actually,
video.
I was getting back to happenstance.
We did.
Back to happenstance. Don't tell me how to live.
Uh-huh.
You guys said that during the shoot, then it started to snow, but that is like happenstance. It just fits. It's just
Works.
it's bombastic.
Our director was howling because he's like, well, we just ran out of smoke, and then it started snowing. He's like, come on! He's like, this is the best possible scenario we could have. And I'm like, all right, let's just keep going until my hands fall off.
So I'm assuming that must have been cold.
It was cool.
Yeah, that's being, of course, Canadian outdoors.
Yeah, it's not so bad,
Yeah. So you guys are at a point now that you actually give guitar tutorials.
Someone, yeah.
Do we?
That's what I saw
Where?
on YouTube.
Oh yeah, we did Guitar Player.
Yeah.
Magazine ones. Yeah.
Yeah, those aren't our ideas.
Did you ever dream of being at that point?
No.
Because you guys just started this band as kind of on a lark.
I used to use the Guitar World tutorials all the time.
Yeah.
I used to have a subscription to Guitar World, and I used to do all the tabs, and especially read this column by Rob Zombie that was all about how to tour and how to be an independent band.
Right.
I used to take a lot of stock in that. In fact, I would cut them all out from every magazine issue and made them into a little book that I used to read all the time. Not that much of it applies to how things work today, but it was something that I used to love to, aspire to. But yeah, I never expected that. I mean, we were in Guitar World, and we got an issue of Guitar Magazine yesterday that we were in, and I guess they're going to do another tab on a song, I think, soon for us, and we'll have another feature. And yeah, that's all stuff that it's always cool to see, because of course we never envisioned being there or doing those things. And
I think because we don't think it's really that hard to learn our songs. So.
Yeah, that's why when you said that, I was like, what the fuck?
Well, they can just learn them, just listen to it.
Yeah.
It's so easy.
Well, and I would encourage that, because there's a lot of times when people are asking us for tabs, and I feel like a jerk saying it, but I want to be like, learn it. Like, use your ear. Because I had to do that with a lot of the songs I wanted to learn when I started playing guitar. They weren't tabbed because they weren't popular. It was punk rock songs that didn't have the mainstream clout to have tab books.
So you played them by ear?
I had to learn by ear.
Right.
It took a long time. It was really frustrating. In the beginning, it was wrong. I'd be thinking I was playing the right thing and I wasn't. But it's something you got to challenge yourself to do, because the more you do it, the better you get at it. The better understanding you have of how the guitar works and how you can emulate those sounds that you hear on those records that you love. And then it also leads you down a path that allows you to come up with your own ideas. And you get your own creativity out of the fact that you had to do it on your own, and you weren't just following some recipe book on how to play that part. And those tab books are not always right. In fact, most of the time they're wrong. And your ability to listen to what's happening on the record and translate it into your own playing is the best way to coming up with your own style, because you learn all the little tricks that, whether it's a pinch harmonic or one of like a like a pick scrape or a feedback note or something that really adds to the vibe of someone else's song. When you learn those on your own, it really helps you develop your own style, and it was something I would recommend to almost anybody trying to learn. Unless you're learning Led Zeppelin, then I suggest you get the tab book.
If you ever watch online, there's a British comedian did a thing called Playing with a Tab Book. Ralph McTell put out a tab book on the stand, and he was inviting all these other guitarists like Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits and so on. They would come in, and then they would play music, and then they'd say, okay, now play according to the book, and then they weren't able to do it. So it was kind of like a very ironic twist.
I can help me figure a couple little things out, but it's...
It always looked like math to me, boring.
Blue Jays, Maple Leaf, Argonauts. You guys sports fans?
Leafs, Jays.
What happened to the Jays, man?
It's a Tiger Cat.
They blew it. They blew it.
They got a lot of issues.
I got a real problem if any team that starts popping champagne bottles for a wild card victory.
Yeah.
I don't get that.
Okay.
I will never fucking understand that.
Yeah. So, would you guys kind of perceive someday people thinking of the term when they hear monster truck, thinking of you guys?
Yeah, that probably won't ever happen.
It's happened.
But I mean, when someone says Zeppelin, you don't think of the Hindenburg. You think of the band.
Yeah, true.
It's something.
Good reference.
It's something that happens a lot easier over here because it's not such a staple of modern mainstream.
Wait, like it is in the U.S.
Yeah, and then in Canada, we've already kind of gotten ourselves into that #1 Google position with the success we've had in Canada.
If you write band after Monster.
No, not anymore. Not
Really?
anymore. You can just type Monster Truck and it's in the top 3.
Well,
now.
I tried here on Wikipedia, and the actual truck came up.
Yeah, of course.
So
Well,
I had to add band, like you said.
That's why, like I said, that's what we're doing over here.
Right.
In Canada, we've kind of reached that status where we're almost as big as the item or the noun itself. But yeah, it's something we're working towards, and it's just one of those things that it's either going to happen or it's not going to happen. And at the end of the day, it's not that important. But it's always fun to see that we're the king of the search results.
Well, I was listening to the album back to front several times over the past couple of weeks, and I have to say, heavy shit. Did you guys omit a letter on the title of this album?
Shittin' Heavy.
And that's what it seems. I kind of thought, because the quirky Canadian huge sense of humor, if I think of Rush, they parody themselves.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe that's what you guys were kind of like in the back of your minds.
The album title came from our drummer who ate a really big burrito, and then seriously,
Okay.
and then he said, "Wow, burrito's sitting heavy," and I was like, "All right, call it that."
Okay. Well, I just thought that was kind of like.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
I guess not. So I live in the Black Forest, and I have to admit, Black Forest, the track, really appeals to me. Very much blues influence.
Yeah. Always. This is how I grew up.
But there's a lot of blues influence in the album itself.
Oh yeah, always will be.
Yeah.
I'm not. It's just there. It's an influence I've always had. My dad's been a blues man, and that's just how it goes. I mean, you don't try to be a blues band, period, because that pigeonholes you. But I mean, it'll always be there, especially the vocal melodies.
I don't know where it came from for me. Still, I started feeling it when I was. Yeah.
There you go.
Influence each other.
Yeah, well, it was like I just remember starting to work on different riffs. I honestly, one of the big albums that really resonated with me when I started trying to learn those type of that kind of song or that vibe was an album that he gave me was Magic Potion by Black Keys, which is a really bluesy record, and it's really raw record. It's just guitar and drums and no bullshit, no overdubs. Just like it sounds like they recorded the whole goddamn thing in one session. And that I don't know what I haven't listened to that record in a while. I need to, but I remember learning the entire record and it influencing a lot of my early writing with this band. And it was something that he kind of lent to me or showed me that I was like, holy shit, this is fucking good.
Doesn't get more bare bones than Black Keys.
Well, it used to be when their old stuff, right. They kind of took a left turn there after that record, but it was it was not for the better or the worse. It was just a different direction. Actually, Attack and Release after that was probably arguably, I don't know, isn't that your favorite record?
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. All right, well, John, Jeremy, thanks a lot for chatting today.
No problem.
Hi, this is John.
And this is Jeremy from Monster Truck. So crank up your speakers to 11 on Backbeat, the rock source with AndreGraziadei on Fries, Radio Freudenstadt.